The Last of Us Part 2 is probably one of, if not the most anticipated PlayStation 4 exclusive in the console's upcoming lineup, of which there are so many games to be excited about coming up for the PlayStation 4. Obviously, this game no doubt deserves to be the most anticipated, for two main reasons, being The Last of Us, the original, was a masterpiece of gaming. It was one of the very best games ever made, one of the very best narratives ever made inside the video game industry, and the second reason being, of course, it's Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog make masterpieces. They are the very best that our industry has to offer, and they are just on another level in almost every field when it comes to game design, storytelling, and so on. So people are psyched for The Last of Us Part 2, myself included, but today I wanted to get a little bit pessimistic with this video, and I'm talking about the release date for The Last of Us Part 2, because I've seen in the gaming community for the past number of months, all over the internet, in YouTube comment sections, on Twitter, etc., the idea or notion from many gamers that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be releasing in 2018 this year. I've seen it many times where people are saying, wow, I can't wait for The Last of Us Part 2 this year. The Last of Us Part 2 is my most anticipated game of 2018. I can't wait for The Last of Us Part 2 in 2018. And every time I read something along those lines, I think to myself, I feel sorry for you. Because The Last of Us Part 2 will not release in 2018. That is not a fact. It could come out this year. I'm simply expressing my opinion. This is a prediction on my part. However, it is a prediction that has a lot of evidence to support it, and one that makes complete and total sense, and one that I'm also very confident in. Basically, I just don't want people to get disappointed when the game inevitably doesn't release this year. It's not going to happen. A lot of gamers have been thinking it's coming out this year, seemingly based on a lot of misinformation that's out there on the internet. The game was revealed at PSX of 2016, just over a year ago, and it had no release date or release time frame attached to it. We then got a second trailer almost a year after that point at Paris Games Week in 2017, and once again, this trailer did not show any release date or release time frame, giving no inclination as to when the game will actually come out. There's also been no gameplay out of these two trailers. So far, there's been no hints at release date or when the game's going to come out, and we've seen no gameplay. All of these are pretty sure signs that the game isn't very close to completion. To continue to support the fact that the game's definitely not coming out in 2018, Neil Druckmann said at PSX that the game is 50 to 60% complete in its current state. And if you consider the fact that the game probably went into full production after the release of Uncharted 4 in the middle of 2016, they still haven't had enough time to complete it in time for a 2018 release. And perhaps the most telling thing of all, the game's composer actually said in a relatively recent interview that he believes the game is going to be releasing in 2019, which was the assumption I had all along. And 2019 is also a release time that perfectly lines up with Naughty Dog's development cycle of the game. It also lines up with the fact that we haven't seen gameplay for the title yet, and the fact that Naughty Dog games typically have a fair few years between their announcement and release. Those years filled with trailers and gameplay showings, etc. So for those of you who still had the idea, or still maybe think that the game's going to come out this year, I'm sorry to disappoint you today, but that's almost definitely not going to happen. Basically, I felt the need to say this simply because a lot of people are going to get annoyed, because in their own minds, the expectation was that The Last of Us Part 2 was going to release in 2018, and when that doesn't happen, they're going to get pissed off, they're going to get frustrated. So basically, I just wanted to temper some expectations out there, present some evidence, and hopefully make it clear to you why the game is not going to come out this year. Now, in terms of a prediction of when I think it will come out, again lining up with the development cycle evidence I presented earlier with the 50 to 60% completion rate, and also the release of the original game, I think it's pretty fair to say that The Last of Us Part 2 will release in the middle of 2019. The original Last of Us game released in June of 2013, and Naughty Dog just recently released Uncharted 4 in May of 2016. Both of those being in the middle of the year and being 3 years apart from each other. So that time period makes sense that it would be 3 years between The Last of Us and Uncharted 4, and then another 3 years between Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2, and we're seeing more and more these days of games choosing to come out in times of the year that are not fall releases. So these huge Naughty Dog games can get plenty of attention on their own in a time of the year where there's not a lot of competition from third parties in the industry. So as always, please leave your thoughts on this topic in the comment section down below. I'll see you all in the next video. Please do take care and farewell.